Vance floated through the darkness between dead ships, her oxygen tank hissing softly in her helmet. The ossuary stretched out before her like a metal graveyard, thousands of broken vessels drifting in slow circles around a dying red star. Some ships were small, no bigger than houses. Others were massive, their hulls torn open like wounded animals. All of them were dead. This was where ships came to die, and this was where worked. She was 32 years old, thin from too many skipped meals. With dark hair she kept short because long hair was dangerous around machinery. Her hands were covered in small scars from years of working with tools and hot metal. She wore a salvage suit that had been patched so many times it looked like a quilt made of different colored fabrics. Had been a real mechanic once. She had worked in the great shipyards of Helix Station, where the Galactic Concordat built their finest vessels. She had been good at her job. Too good, some said. The problem was that could not leave things alone. When she saw a ship's engine running at 80%, she had to make it run at 90. When she found a design flaw, she had to fix it, even if no one asked her to. The shipmaster had fired her for improving their sacred drive systems without permission. The foreman had thrown her out for making their weapons more efficient than regulations allowed. The human corporate yards had blacklisted her for embarrassing their engineers by solving problems they had ignored for years. Now she worked in the ossuary, cutting apart dead ships and selling the pieces. It was lonely work. It was dangerous work, but it let her use her hands, and that was something. Today she was looking for copper wiring in an old cargo hauler when she saw it again. The black ship. It sat in the deepest part of the ossuary, far from the other wrecks. Warning buoys floated around it, flashing red lights and broadcasting messages in 7 different alien languages. Did not need to understand the words. The meaning was clear: stay away. The ship was beautiful in a strange way. Its hull was pure black, like a piece of night sky given solid form. Thin lines ran across its surface, like veins under skin. The design was unlike anything had ever seen. It did not look or human. It did not look like it belonged to any species she knew. The other salvagers called it the Sleeper. They said it had been here for 100 years. They said every race in the galaxy had tried to open it. They had sent their best, priests who could speak to machines. They had used plasma cutters hot enough to melt through planets. The consortium had sent artificial intelligences so advanced they could crack any code ever made. Nothing worked. The ship stayed sealed, silent, dead. Or so everyone believed. Had been watching the Sleeper for 3 months now. Every day when her work was done, she would float near the warning buoys and look at it. She did not know why. Something about the ship called to her. It was like hearing a sound at the edge of your hearing, so quiet you were not sure if it was real. Today she made a decision. She would go closer. Her small work pod moved slowly past the buoys. Warning messages filled her radio, telling her to turn back. She turned the radio off. The red lights flashed against her faceplate as she passed them. Then she was through, floating in the empty space around the Sleeper. Up close the ship was even more impressive. It was not very large, maybe 200 meters long, but it had a presence that made it feel bigger. The black hull seemed to drink in the light from the dying star. The vein-like lines were not painted on, realized. They were part of the ship itself, like blood vessels in a living thing. She brought her pod alongside the hull and put on her helmet. Then she opened the airlock and floated out into space. Her magnetic boots clicked against the black metal, and she stood on the surface of a ship that had defeated the greatest minds in the galaxy. Took off her glove. The other salvagers would have called her crazy. Touching unknown alien material with bare skin was against every safety rule ever written, but had learned long ago that the best way to understand a machine was to feel it. The metal was warm under her fingers. That was wrong. In space, things were either burning hot from starlight or freezing cold in shadow. But this ship was warm like the skin of a sleeping animal. And then she felt it, a heartbeat. Not a pulse of electricity or a vibration from engines. Something deeper, something alive. It was faint, so faint that any scanner would have missed it, but fingers knew machines the way a doctor's fingers knew bodies. This ship was not dead. It was sleeping. She pressed her helmet against the hull and closed her eyes. The heartbeat was clearer now, slow and steady, and underneath it she could feel something else. Pain. The ship was hurt. Something was wrong inside it, something that had been wrong for a very long time. Opened her eyes and looked at the stars. She had found something impossible. A ship that every expert said was dead, but was actually alive. A puzzle that the greatest civilizations could not solve. She should report it. She should call the Concordat authorities and let them handle it. That was the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But had never been very good at doing the safe thing. She ran her fingers along the hull, following the vein-like lines. They had a pattern, she realized. A logic. They were not random. They flowed from one part of the ship to another, like rivers on a map. And all of them led to one place, a spot near the front of the ship where the lines came together. She walked along the hull, her magnetic boots clicking with each step. The dying star cast long shadows across the black metal. When she reached the spot where the lines met, she knelt down and pressed both hands against the surface. The heartbeat grew stronger under her palms. The warmth increased, and somewhere deep inside the ship something stirred. Smiled. She had no money. She had no job. She had nothing but her tools and her skills and her stubborn refusal to give up on broken things. But she had found something that no one else could see, and she was going to wake it up. Came back to the sleeper every day for a week. She did not tell anyone what she had found. The other salvagers thought she was wasting her time, and that was fine with her. Let them think she was crazy. She knew what she had felt. Each visit she learned more about the ship. She walked every meter of its hull, her fingers tracing the vein-like lines. She brought her best scanner, but the machine was useless. Whenever she pointed it at the ship, the screen filled with static. So she put the scanner away and used her hands instead. The lines on the hull were not just decoration. They were conduits, pathways for energy to flow through the ship. Had seen similar systems in vessels, but those were crude copies compared to this. The sleeper's conduits were elegant, beautiful even. They reminded her of the blood vessels in a leaf, carrying life to every part. But something was blocking the flow. Somewhere in the network there was a break. Energy could not move properly, so the ship had shut down. It was like a heart that had stopped beating because one tiny valve had failed. Finding the break took her 3 more days. She worked in silence, floating along the hull in the red light of the dying star. Her oxygen tanks ran low twice, and she had to go back to her little pod to refill them. She forgot to eat. She forgot to sleep. Nothing mattered except solving the puzzle. On the 4th day, she found it. The break was small, no bigger than her thumbnail. A hairline crack in one of the bioorganic conduits, hidden in a shadow where 2 hull plates met. No scanner would ever find it. No cutting tool would ever reach it. But's fingers felt the tiny gap where the conduit had split. She floated there for a long time, staring at the crack. This was what had defeated This was what had stopped the plasma cutters. This was what had confused the consortium AIs. Not a lock that needed a key, not a code that needed to be broken, just a wound that needed to be healed. The other species had come with force. They had tried to break the ship open to take what was inside, but the sleeper was not a treasure chest. It was a living thing, and it was hurt. Of course it had sealed itself away. That was what wounded creatures did. Went back to her pod and counted her credits. She had 47 left, barely enough to buy food for a week. But she knew what she needed, and she knew where to get it. The trading post on the far side of the ossuary was run by an old named. He had 6 arms and skin the color of copper, and he sold everything a salvager might need. Bought a tube of adaptive nanosealant, the most expensive kind, the type that could bond with any material and heal almost any break. It cost her 43 credits. She had 4 credits left. 4 credits was not enough to buy food. It was not enough to buy oxygen. If she was wrong about the ship, she would starve to death in the ossuary and no one would even notice. Did not care. She had found something worth dying for. She returned to the sleeper and floated to the hidden crack. The nano-sealant was designed for human ships but had a feeling it would work. She applied it carefully, gently, spreading it over the wound like medicine on a cut. The sealant glowed blue for a moment, then turned the same black as the hull. It had bonded. Then she waited. For an hour, nothing happened. The ship floated in silence, its hull dark and cold. Began to doubt herself. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the crack was nothing. Maybe the heartbeat she felt was just her imagination, a lonely mechanic dreaming of something that was not there. And then the lines began to glow. It started at the place where she had applied the sealant. A soft amber light, like honey held up to the sun. The light spread along the conduits, flowing outward across the hull. Watched with her mouth open as the entire ship came alive, its veins pulsing with warm, golden energy. The heartbeat under her hands grew stronger. It was no longer faint and struggling. It was steady and powerful, the beat of something waking from a long sleep. A sound came through her helmet, carried by the vibrations in the hull. It was not words, not exactly, but understood it anyway. It was a sigh of relief, a sound of pain finally ending after a very long time. The airlock opened. Stared at it. For 100 years, this door had stayed sealed against every force the galaxy could bring. Now it was open, revealing a corridor filled with soft amber light. The ship was inviting her inside. She should have been scared. Any sensible person would have been terrified. This was an alien vessel of unknown origin, built by a species that had disappeared before her own species learned to use fire. Anything could be waiting inside. Traps, dangers, death. But was not sensible. She was a mechanic who had just healed a wound that everyone said was impossible. She had nothing left to lose and everything to discover. She stepped through the airlock and into the ship. The corridor was unlike anything she had seen before. The walls curved in ways that should not have been possible. The floor beneath her feet was soft, almost like skin. The amber light came from the veins in the walls, now pulsing in time with the heartbeat she could feel through her boots. Walked deeper into the ship. Each step took her further from everything she knew, but she was not afraid. She felt something she had not felt in years, maybe ever. She felt like she was coming home. The corridor led her to a chamber at the center of the ship. There was no furniture, no control panels, nothing she recognized. Just a pillar of crystal in the middle of the room, glowing with inner light. The pillar hummed with energy and could feel it calling to her. She walked to the pillar and placed her hand on its surface. Light exploded through her mind. She saw stars being born. She saw civilizations rising and falling. She saw a species of beings so old that humans were not even a dream when they walked among the stars. And she heard a voice, ancient and tired, speaking directly into her thoughts. "You came," the voice said. "After all this time, you finally came." Did not know how to respond. She did not need to. The voice already knew everything about her. Her failures, her loneliness, her stubborn refusal to give up on broken things. And for the first time in 100 years, the sleeper spoke. The voice in its mind was not angry or threatening. It was tired, so very tired. It carried the weight of thousands of years, the loneliness of sleeping while the universe moved on without it. Felt tears forming in her eyes, and she did not know if they were hers or the ship's. "You are small," the voice said. "Fragile, your species is unknown to me. What are you called?" Swallowed hard. Her hand was still pressed against the crystal pillar, and she could feel warmth spreading through her fingers. "I'm human," she said. "My name is Vance." "Human," the voice repeated the word slowly as if tasting it. "I have slept for a long time. When I closed my eyes, your kind did not exist. Tell me, Vance, why did you come here?" It was a simple question but found it hard to answer. Why had she come? She thought about it for a long moment. "Because you were hurt," she finally said, "and I know how to fix things." Silence filled the chamber. The amber light in the walls pulsed slowly, like a heart considering what it had heard. Then the voice spoke again, and this time there was something different in it, something like wonder. "Others came before you, many others. They brought weapons and tools of war. They cut at my skin. They burned my flesh. They sent machines to crawl inside me and take what they wanted. None of them asked. None of them cared if I was in pain." "That's horrible," said softly. "It was," the voice agreed. "So I sealed myself away. I made myself dead to the universe. I thought I would sleep forever, waiting for someone who would never come." Pressed her other hand against the pillar. The crystal was warm and smooth, almost like touching another person. "You don't have to sleep anymore," she said. "I'm here now. I can help you." Why? The question was sharp, almost suspicious. "You are poor. You are alone. You have nothing to gain by helping me. Why would you do this?" Thought about the question. It was true. She had nothing to gain. Helping this ship would not make her rich. It would not give her a job. It would not solve any of her problems. But that was not why she did things. "Because everything deserves a chance to fly again," she said. "Because being broken doesn't mean being worthless. Because—" she paused, trying to find the right words. "Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. I can't pay that back, but I can pass it on." The light in the chamber changed. The amber glow became warmer, softer, like sunlight on a summer afternoon. Felt something shift in the connection between her and the ship. The suspicion faded, replaced by something else. Trust. "I am called," the voice said. "I was built by the precursors, the first ones who walked among the stars when the galaxy was young. They created me to carry their knowledge, to preserve their legacy after they were gone." "The precursors," whispered. She knew the name. Everyone did. They were legends, myths, the mysterious beings who had left ruins and artifacts scattered across 1,000 worlds. No one knew what they looked like. No one knew where they went. They had simply vanished, leaving only traces behind. "They are gone now," said, "all of them. I am the last piece of their dream that still lives. And I have been so alone, Vance, so very alone." Felt the loneliness like a physical weight. 4,000 years of silence. 4,000 years of waiting in the dark, hoping someone would come. She could not imagine that kind of isolation. It would have driven any human mad. "You're not alone anymore," she said. "I promise." The crystal pillar blazed with light. Suddenly could see everything, not with her eyes but with her mind. She saw the ship from the inside, saw every system and every conduit. She saw the engines that could bend space itself. She saw the weapons that could crack planets. She saw libraries filled with knowledge that humanity had never dreamed of. But more than that, she felt heart. The ship was not just a machine. It was a person with hopes and fears and memories. It had watched civilizations rise and fall. It had seen wonders that no living being remembered. And through all of it, it had waited for someone who would see it as more than a prize to be claimed. "This is what I am," said. "This is what the precursors left behind. Knowledge, history, power beyond anything your galaxy has ever known. And it is yours, Vance, if you want it." Pulled her hands away from the pillar. She stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mine," she said. "Why me? I'm nobody. I'm just a mechanic who can't hold down a job." "That is exactly why," replied. "The powerful came to me with demands. They wanted to use me, control me, take what I had. But you came with nothing but kindness. You healed my wound when you could have simply walked away. You asked nothing in return." The light in the chamber settled into a gentle glow. Around, the walls began to change. Panels slid open, revealing controls and displays that configured themselves for human hands. A chair rose from the floor, shaped perfectly for her body. "The precursors built me to wait for a worthy partner," continued. "For 100 centuries, I judged everyone who came by their power, their technology, their strength. I was wrong. The worthy one was not the strongest or the worthy one was simply the kindest. Sank into the chair. It fit her perfectly, as if it had been made for her all along. Maybe it had been. She looked around the bridge that was forming around her, a command center designed for a human who had been born thousands of years after this ship was built. "What happens now?" she asked. Now said, and there was joy in the ancient voice, real joy after so many years of sorrow. "We fly together. We explore what the precursors left behind. We use their knowledge to help rather than to harm. And perhaps in time we teach the galaxy what true worth really means." Laughed. It was a wild sound, full of disbelief and wonder. Yesterday she had been a penniless salvager with no future. Today she was the partner of an ancient ship that carried the legacy of a dead civilization. "Okay," she said, gripping the arms of her chair. "Let's fly." The sleeper awoke. News traveled fast in space. Within 3 days, everyone knew what had happened in the ossuary. The sleeper had awakened, and a human had done it. Watched the ships arrive from her new bridge. Showed her everything through the displays that wrapped around her chair, screens that seemed to float in the air and respond to her thoughts. First came the small vessels, news drones and curious traders who wanted to see the miracle for themselves. Then came the bigger ships. The sent a diplomatic cruiser, its hull covered in sacred symbols and religious markings. The sent 3 warships, their weapons already powered and ready. The consortium sent a scientific vessel surrounded by defense drones. They all wanted the same thing. "They want me," said in her mind. "They want what I carry." "What do you want?" asked. "To stay with you." The answer came without hesitation. "You are my partner now. I will not leave you." Smiled, but the smile faded when she saw more ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. This was not a visit. This was an invasion. Word had spread too far, too fast. Every power in the sector wanted the precursor ship, and they were not going to ask nicely. A message came through on all frequencies. It was the ambassador, a tall being with silver skin and eyes that glowed like stars. Her voice was calm but firm. "Human called Vance," the ambassador said. "The vessel you have awoken is a sacred artifact of the first ones. It belongs to all peoples of the galaxy. You must surrender it to the Galactic Concordat for study and protection." Before could answer, another message cut in. The commander was massive, covered in black armor that made him look like a living tank. His voice was a deep growl. "Forget the Concordat," he said. "That ship is a weapon of unimaginable power. It must be secured before it falls into the wrong hands. Hand it over, human, and you will be rewarded. Refuse, and you will be destroyed." More messages followed. The consortium offered her wealth. A dozen smaller factions offered protection, alliance, partnership. Everyone had an offer. Everyone had a threat hidden behind their smile. Stood up from her chair. Her legs were shaking, but her voice was steady. "No," she said. The transmissions went silent. No one had expected that answer. "Is not property," continued. "It is not a weapon or an artifact or a prize. It is a person. It has thoughts and feelings and the right to choose its own future. And it chose me. If you have a problem with that, you can talk to it directly." The commander laughed. It was an ugly sound like rocks grinding together. "You think we are afraid of an ancient relic? Look around you, human. I have a battle fleet in this sector. 1 human and 1 obsolete ship against the finest warriors in the galaxy. You will last perhaps 5 minutes. Looked at the displays around her. They were right about one thing. There were a lot of ships out there, enough firepower to destroy a planet. She and were badly outnumbered. But she remembered what had shown her. The engines that bent space, the weapons that cracked planets, the shields that stopped light itself. She said quietly, "You want to show them obsolete?" "I thought you would never ask," the ship replied. There was laughter in its voice, ancient and wild and free. Every sensor in the ossuary screamed at once. Warning alarms filled 100 bridges, because the sleeper was not sleeping anymore. The black hull began to change. Panels slid and folded, revealing systems that had no name in any modern language. The ship grew larger, then smaller, then larger again, its shape shifting like water. Weapons emerged from hidden places, not cannons or missiles but something else entirely, things that glowed with the light of captured stars. The ships around the ossuary tried to target the sleeper. Their computers went crazy. The black ship was here, then there, then somewhere else completely. It moved in ways that should have been impossible, dancing between targeting solutions like a ghost. I have slept for 4,000 years, broadcast on every frequency. Its voice filled every bridge in the sector, ancient and powerful and absolutely calm. In that time, I have watched your civilizations rise and squabble and stagnate. You have forgotten what the precursors knew. You have forgotten that power without compassion is merely destruction waiting to happen. The commander shouted orders. His warships fired brilliant beams of energy that could have cut through any known armor. The beams bent around the sleeper like water around a stone. They did not even leave a mark. This human showed me something none of you have, continued. Respect for what she did not understand. She did not come with weapons. She did not come with demands. She came with kindness, and she healed my wounds when she had nothing to gain. The sleeper stopped moving. It hung in space, surrounded by the fleet, absolutely still. But now everyone could see what it truly was, not an old wreck, not an obsolete relic. A power from the beginning of time, fully awake for the first time in 4,000 years. She will be my partner, my voice, my hands in this galaxy, and through her, perhaps your species will learn what mine could not teach you through silence. The warships powered down their weapons. One by one, the other ships did the same. No one wanted to fight something that could bend their weapons away like toys. The ambassador spoke again. Her voice was different now, humble instead of demanding. What do you want from us? Answered before could. Nothing, she said. We don't want to rule anyone or fight anyone. We just want to be left alone. There are things out there that the precursors left behind, knowledge that could help everyone. Maybe we'll share it someday, but not with people who come at us with threats and demands. She sat back in her chair and looked at the fleet on her displays. Go home, she said. Tell your leaders what you saw here today. Tell them that the sleeper has a friend now and its friend doesn't like bullies. One by one, the ships turned and left. First the small ones, then the larger ones. The commander was last, his warships hanging in space for a long moment before finally jumping away. When they were gone, let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. She had just faced down the most powerful forces in the galaxy and won. You did well, said gently. I am proud to have you as my partner. Laughed a little wildly. I'm proud to have you as mine, she said. Now, what do you say we get out of here before they change their minds? The engines hummed with power. Stars stretched into lines as the ancient ship leaped forward into the unknown. 3 months passed like a dream. Stood on the bridge of they, watching a new star system unfold before her. Twin suns burned in the darkness, one gold and one blue, their light mixing into something beautiful and strange. Planets circled them in slow orbits, some covered in clouds, some bare rock, one glittering with what might have been cities. The precursors had been here once, could feel traces of them, faint echoes of the civilization that had built it so long ago. Somewhere on one of those planets there might be answers, more knowledge, more pieces of the puzzle that was slowly putting together. She had learned so much in 3 months, taught her about the precursors, about their science and their philosophy and their dreams. They had not been gods, the ship told her. They had been people like any other. They made mistakes. They had wars. They loved and hated and hoped and feared. But they had also believed in something. They believed that knowledge was meant to be shared, not hoarded. They believed that the strong had a duty to help the weak. They believed that the universe was not a thing to be conquered, but a garden to be tended. And then they were gone. No one knew why, even did not know the whole story. But they had left pieces of themselves behind, scattered across the galaxy like seeds, waiting for someone to find them. Had not found them all. She had not even found a fraction of them. But she had found enough to know that her life would never be the same. "Why me?" she asked, not for the first time. She was sitting in her chair, her feet up on the console in front of her. 3 months ago, she would never have dared to do that. Now it felt natural. The bridge was her home. "You ask that question often," replied. Its voice was warm in her mind like a friend sitting beside her. "The answer has not changed." "I know," said, I still don't understand. There are smarter people out there, stronger people, people with armies and resources and power. Why pick a broke mechanic from a backwater planet?" "Because you saw a broken thing and wanted to heal it," said. "Not use it, not control it, heal it. That is rarer than you know, Vance." She thought about that for a while. Outside the windows, the twin suns burned in their endless dance. Somewhere in this system, there was something waiting for them. A clue, a piece of the precursor legacy, another step on a journey that might never end. "The precursors built me to preserve their legacy," continued, "but they made an error. They assumed that only the powerful would be worthy. They designed tests of strength and intelligence and will. They never imagined that the worthy one would be someone like you." "A nobody," said. "No, a being who measures worth not by what can be taken, but by what can be given." Smiled. She still did not fully believe it. Part of her still expected to wake up back in her cramped pod in the ossuary, still broke, still alone, still dreaming of something better. But the stars outside were real. The ship around her was real. And the voice in her mind was the truest thing she had ever known. "Your species is young," said, "chaotic, often foolish. You fight among yourselves, you destroy what you could protect, you fear what you do not understand." "That's not exactly a glowing review," said. "But you also carry something the elder races have forgotten," continued. "The belief that anything broken can be made whole again. The hope that tomorrow can be better than today. The stubborn refusal to accept that some wounds cannot be healed." Thought about her own life, the failures, the firings, the long nights alone in the ossuary, wondering if she would ever amount to anything. She had never given up, not really. Even when everything seemed hopeless, some part of her had kept going. Maybe that was worth something after all. The navigation display lit up in front of her, was showing her their next destination, a dead world where precursor archives supposedly lay buried beneath a continent of glass. It would be dangerous. It would be difficult. But it would also be wonderful. "Think we'll find trouble?" asked. "Certainly," replied. There was a hint of amusement in its voice. "Trouble finds us wherever we go. I believe it is your natural talent." Laughed. "Fair enough. Think we can handle it." A pause. When spoke again, there was warmth in its ancient voice, something that sounded almost like love. "Together, I believe we can handle anything." Settled deeper into her chair. She remembered the woman she had been 3 months ago, floating through the ossuary with nothing but empty pockets and stubborn dreams. That woman seemed like a stranger now, or maybe not a stranger, maybe just a seed that had finally found soil. She reached for the controls. Behind her, through the windows, the ossuary was long gone. The dying star where she had spent her lonely years was just another point of light, lost among billions. Ahead lay the unknown, vast and strange and full of wonders. "All right, old friend," she said. "Let's see what's out there." The engines hummed with ancient power. Space bent and twisted around them, and the sleeper and its partner leaped forward into a future that was just beginning. They had a galaxy to explore. They had secrets to uncover. They had knowledge to share and wrongs to right and wonders to discover. It would take lifetimes. It would take forever. And that was perfectly fine with both of them. Because some journeys were not about reaching a destination. Some journeys were about who you traveled with and what you became along the way. Vance, penniless mechanic, had awakened a sleeping god, and now, together, they were going to remind the galaxy what it had forgotten. That kindness was stronger than force, that patience was wiser than power, and that the smallest hands could heal the deepest wounds. The stars stretched into lines, the ship sang with joy, and somewhere in the endless dark a new legend was being born.